Okay, we can make a little joke like now, and it's gone, and I can continue, and it's fine. Number 11, 12, and 13 are kind of typology of the interaction. Focused interaction, or the system of phase engagement, as he calls it, is simply, you know, this is focused interaction, right? We have a focus, right? We have a thing that we all focus on, and this is simply as that. Unfocused interaction is, for example, in the public spaces or in a waiting room by the doctor office. There are people, important is that interaction is not about talking to people. Talking is only part of interaction. Co-presence, being in the same room with other people, this is already interaction. Because you manage your behavior in accordance to somebody being there with you. So unfocused interaction would be public spaces, right? That randomly you might talk to somebody, right? But actually this is not a very, very common thing. Okay, number 13, multi-focused interaction. This is a great term to discover very, very common thing. Party, party. That you have many focused interaction, right? You have 2 people talking here, 3 people talking there, somebody there, somebody there. Multi-focused interaction. But still, what is important, that you can distinguish all those people. Let's say when we finish, maybe we'll go to this little park to talk, right? And we'll form multi-focus interaction, but we are still, even we are not very related. In some points, let's say I talk to you and you talk to somebody else, but we still are distinguishable from outsiders, as Goffman says, from other people, right? Even being in the park, but they are not a part of this, this interaction. Number 14. This is my favorite term, actually. Request for channel opening. Request for channel opening. This is simply a gesture, a word, extended eye contact that suggests that you want to open the channel of interaction. Okay? If somebody is staring at you, you might feel that this person might say something, right, to you. And this, I find it great because, for example, if you know somebody, let's say, if you don't know a person, right? You need to have a reason to open the channel, right? You need to have something to say. I know, ask for the way to the post office, or have a kind of a reason to start it. But if you know the person, then you need to have a reason to not to start interact. Okay? Let's say you see somebody in MRT and you know this person, and you know this feeling, right? Everyone has it once in a while that, should I go to this person and talk? We know, it's embarrassment again, right? I remember a guy from the high school that for him it was so embarrassing meeting like people that he doesn't really know but know a little, and he's supposed to have a little talk and he hated. So he used to go to the different bus station and taking different bus to school just to avoid those people. Because he said, using the Goffman's term would be like, he has a material for like 1 minute talk and the bus takes 20 minutes. So it's 19 minutes of embarrassment, it's too much. Okay, of course, request for channel opening goes with request for channel closing, right? You need to give another person know that you're gonna close the interaction. Let's say, if you're talking to somebody and then I'm talking to you, right? And then I just finish a sentence and turn around and leave. And you would be, right? Embarrassing again. So you need to kind of like, oh, I gotta go, or like your body position will suggest that, okay, yeah, I'm leaving. This is request for channel closing. Open positions, 15. Some people have a more open positions than others. For example, policeman, priest, doctor, I don't know, service person, a waiter, that they have kind of more rights, it's more justified that they approach you in particular situation, right? If you're on the street and policeman will approach you, it's kind of understandable, right? If a stranger approaches you, you must have kind of a stronger reason, okay, to justify this approach. Okay, number 15. Sorry, I didn't take a clock, so maybe
you're okay.
16. Situational withdrawal. This is also my favorite because you can observe it everywhere. Situational withdrawal is like you take yourself out from the situation, which physically you cannot. So you take yourself mentally, let's say. How it works. You are mostly, of course, it takes place during unfocused interaction. You are in the bus, you are in the train. In Poland, we have the trains where the seats are like opposite to each other, so you face another person, right? In Taiwan, you can kind of turn it, but here, and there's a unknown person like that close to you, and you're sitting. And look, if I'm staring at this person, then what I'm doing? I'm sending requests for channel opening, right? But I don't want to open any channel, right? So what should I do? I need to find some prop, something to keep myself busy, right? I can, stare through the window and at the landscape, or at the the most common now is a prop is the cell phone. You do whatever you can, but you can keep yourself busy. Okay. What is interesting? This is a little bit maybe not now, but difference between book and the newspaper. Both might serve as a prop for the withdrawal, but newspaper is better. Because, look, book is thick, right? You read it, you are into this. But newspaper is kind of more fluent. If you want to open up, you can. Because it's just newspaper, I'm just taking a look, right? It's nothing. But the book, it might be kind of like, that you are, actually, you might be embarrassed by this, that somebody might notice that you are pretending that you are reading this. If you too easily open to somebody else, right? Let's say somebody says something and then you just take this book and say, I've been here for 3 years, and then you start talking. It's kind of strange, right? It's too easy, but with the newspaper, no problem. Number 17, civil inattention. This is the essence of the urban life. And, well, simply saying, this is plate disattention to others. That you treat, this is within the big cities, and this is the defensive mechanism for input overload, right? There are too many stimuli coming to your body, too many people, that you kind of build up this wall of inattention to preserve yourself, right? And your attention, because you cannot pay attention to everything. So that's why people wear those masks on the street. In Taiwan, it's okay, but in Europe, it's very strong. People are mean on the street. They walk. They don't want to. They don't want to talk to anybody. They seem they don't want. It's slightly exaggerated, but here in Taipei, you can also find it. Xining area, people living there, they're kind of very urban, or they want to be perceived as urban. So when they walk, they kind of have this very unfriendly face put on that keeps you away. And they also treat people as a decor. This is interesting. They treat people as a kind of decor coming as a package within the urban experience, the streets, cars, the traffic, the lights, everything, and the people, and people walking, like kind of sort of for your amusement, This is kind of a very critical approach to it, but there's something going on like this. Okay, number 18. Impressions that you give and impressions that you give off. This is easy. Impressions that you give is the impressions that you might control, okay, and consciously construct and serve. For example, now, and let me say, give off. Give off those impressions that you cannot control. You give them off without knowing it, right? Let's say, I can control my language to some extent, right? But you already noticed that I'm not native English speaker, right? Because I cannot control it. This is information I give on off, okay? Mostly we are not aware of many things that we give off. There are some people who are trained to control as many aspects of themselves as possible. Actors, this is because they perform, right? They might have a bigger awareness than others, but sellers, people who sell things, they control the way they talk, right? The way they manage their body, the distance toward yourself. This is purpose-oriented behavior, right? They want to sell things. Mormons, I find it. This is a great example for because they are well trained to interact with others. You notice them definitely Taipei. What I noticed, for example, they approach people on the red lights. Why? Because in Taiwan, red lights are great for this. They give you, they show you the seconds, right? Let's say, if you approach to somebody You need to give an illusion that it's going to be short interaction. Even it might last for 40 minutes, but you need to give an illusion that this is just temporary, to not make another person scared. So 40 seconds red light is great, because it's like, oh, we are waiting for the green light, so we can have a little chat with this nice foreigner, right? That he speaks Taiwanese to us, or Chinese, you know, it's great. So what they do is like, they build up this semi-openness, right? Semi-openness, that is kind of, we talk, and basically they frame the situation in this way, that they don't start talking about God right away. They talk about common things that actually you agree. And this is actually the form of mind fucking for me, but in a different way. Mind fucking is like this: this frame, this frame, this frame, this frame, and you are confused. What they do is like they gradually change a frame, So firstly, this is just a little talk about anything, but then it's like kind of, oh, you want to come to this place, or you know, they actually you also are trapped. You cannot react too strongly because it's so smooth. Step by step. You don't know where's this critical moment that you can say, go away, right? That's how it works. Because they are trained, okay? They are trained. 19, situational properties. Well, I build up the tension by drinking coffee, then it's like, but it's actually, this point is not that important. It's easy. Situational properties is, you know, what situation gives you. Spatial arrangement of things. What is important here? The social role, the social behavior is embedded in the place. Through our education, right? When you enter church, when you enter pub, when you enter park or school, you already have this very basic definition of situation, right? Because the social role is kind of there. You just need to pick it up because you've been trained by your parents, basically. That, okay, I'm in the church. Okay, so that's what you do. Number 20, main involvement and side involvement. This is also nice. Main involvement is basically the main focus of the interaction, right? Main focus of the interaction. But there are also side involvements. For example, I can talk to you, and I can drink coffee, right? And it doesn't disrupt interaction. Or I could have a phone, which I forgot to put on my table, and I could take a look at the clock, and it's still fine. But if you get involved too much into side involvements, then you break the frame. You know, if I take this coffee and I start studying what is in it, right? I will break the frame of our interaction, right? I find it fascinating because in Taiwan, those boundaries, of course, it's culturally, socially created, are different. For example, phone talking, right? Talking through the phone, it's more tolerant. Like of course, this is also about familiarity and the social position of those 2-3 people interacting, but this is more tolerant. You might be talking on the phone and talking to somebody, and it's kind of okay. Among friends, let's say, it's more flexible than, let's say, in Poland. Okay, people would get angry with you that, you know, you are. It's disrespectful, simply. What else? 21, frame attunement. Also easy. That is actually related to working consensus and the framing. That you have particular frame, and through interaction, you kind of tune up your behavior, your tone of voice, your vocabulary to this particular framework, okay? Of course, remembering if an impression given and given off, you might control some things and some things not, okay? So this is actually easy. 22, phase work. Phase work. Goffman understood phase quite similarly to Chinese notion of phase as a kind of positive social value that you attach to yourself and you want to maintain it. You don't want to lose it. And what is very interesting that every interaction is like a walking on the main field. That you might step on the mine and you will explode and you will lose phase. Interacting with other person goes with the risk that you will lose your phase. You will do something, or the person will do something that you will lose phase. That's why there are some techniques to kind of work with this, right? How can we maintain this positive social value about ourselves, self-esteem? if you will. 23, avoidance practices and corrective practices is exactly this. How to kind of avoid those losing faces risks. For example, stay away from the topics that might cause face losing. You don't talk about money, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, because people might have a different opinions, you might start arguing, and the frame might change. When the frame breaks, you lose face. It goes together. Not necessarily, but it often goes together. Sometimes frame might be broken, but you still keep your face on. How we do this? How we do it practically? Talking with ambiguity. You don't talk straight. What do you mean? You are kind of like sending your opinion here and there softly, and then you see how the other person reacts, and then you attune. Okay, you tune up. Okay, I gotta speed up. No observance. Let's say something happens, something embarrassing happens. You fart on the first date. Going back to this example. 2 ways of dealing with it. You pretend that it didn't happen. Everyone pretends it didn't happen, or you make a joke about it, right? You exaggerate it. You make a joke, and you can keep face on. Your Chinese is good. People tell me my Chinese is good. What is this? This is avoidance practices. If my Chinese is very good, they wouldn't tell me that my Chinese is good. That's how it works. They tell me that my Chinese is good just to prepare the ground that if later on they will not understand what I'm saying, they already pointed out that they noticed that Chinese is not my first language, right? That I kind of learn it. So we can kind of keep faces. That's, as I understood that your Chinese is good sentence works. 24, interchanges. This is easy, you know. Interaction is like a statement, reply kind of flow. This is similar to frame attunement and working consensus. 25, ethos. This is kind of a general mood that the group creates. Being here, by interacting, we create some sort of mood that if person will enter, should attune to. 26, performance disruption. This is common practice that when you want to break up with a girlfriend or boyfriend, you take her to the public place, right? Why? Because you're hoping that this kind of social control of the situation will control her or him from making a scene. Making a scene is a breaking the frame, right? Exactly. That's how it works. Faux pas, right? Exactly. This is the performance disruption or unmeant gesture. Let's say you talk to woman, being a man, and you touch her breast accidentally, and then this is huge disruption. And what can you do? You can ignore it. Like you both ignore it. It didn't happen. It's kind of strange. So you can make a joke about it, right? If you're able. I mean, under this stress. Okay. 27 regions. This is also. I'm approaching the end. Front stage and backstage. Front. That's the place where you perform. It's easy. You keep management of emotion and management of impression. You keep the face and you roll. But backstage is more interesting. This is the area where you restore your energies, where you prepare props, things that you might use later. You relax. You kind of get into the shape to come back to the front stage activity. Interestingly, in Taiwan, this is kind of blurred. For example, restaurants. On the West, kitchen is isolated from the restaurant, right? The backstage activities are not to be seen. You just see results, okay? A nicely served food. That's what you should see. And people respect it. Clients, they don't go to the backstage, to the kitchen. If they do, this is already disruption. But in Taiwan, the kitchen is where? It's on the front of the restaurant, right? This is kind of very interesting phenomenon. That where's the backstage, right? Goffman talks that it's like the total backstage, like the deepest backstage is a bathroom. That's why the bathrooms have lockers, that you can lock yourself out of everything, right? And kind of take your mask off, right? Okay, 28, diffused regions. Imagine the situation. There's a front region and back region, right? But something happens that is like between. Let's say you are preparing dinner at home. This is backstage activity, okay? You prepared this dinner, but guests arrived too early. What is this, right? You need to kind of develop some techniques to deal with this, because the front situation is kind of on the backstage, is messed up. This is example. Another example from here, like each time we finish, right? Ethan asks us to give a donations to pay for this space. This is backstage activity, right? When we come here, we want to have this space, but we are not really concerned about the backstage, how the space works, how money issue and all those things. But Ethan brings backstage activity on the front stage. So he needs to do something to kind of ease this little tension that might appear. What Ethan does, what do you do? Joke. Ethan says, toss your paycheck or whole wallet, right? You feel like saying this in this way. You don't just stand up and in a dry manner say, donations please, right? You kind of work with this because this is backstage, on the front stage. 29, routine. Routine, this is about the emotional labor. Emotional labor is all those people who work with their emotions. They use their emotions to work, to make money. Waiter, hairdresser, also doctor. They need to kind of produce proper emotions, right? This is part of their job. So the definition, actually, the common definition of in modern society, to have a proper routine is like clean, competent, and integrated. This is modern, right? Okay, I'm going further because there are more interesting issues. Number 30, my favorite, dramatic realization. Dramatic realization is about highlighting or muting some aspect of your performance. For example, let's say I ask my girlfriend to do something for me, right? I don't know, cook a dinner. She cooks a dinner and then she slightly overemphasize her tiredness. She'll be, I spent 2 hours. She's not really that tired, but she might kind of, overemphasize it. It works both ways. When we have some very dull, very boring activities, we might kind of sweep it under the carpet and just present result, right? We kind of want to hide it. For example, you would ask me, how much did it take you to present this, to prepare this presentation? And I could do both. I mean, one or the other one. Like, I would say, it's nothing. I mean, it's just, it was in my head, right? Or I could say, you know what, 2 weeks, like a library every day, a lot of books, and horrible, right? This is dramatic realization. A great example of this that I wasn't aware of when it was happening, but great, okay, something like this. I used to have classes, and I had a professor from Sweden. He was a great guy, but every time when we had class, almost every time when we started class, his phone rang, okay? This is a huge disruption of the frame. What he was doing, probably most of us would just catch this phone and hide it, right? This guy chose the other option. He used to take his phone, lift it up, open up, turn it off, dismantle it, take battery out, and put remains on the table. Great, great. Another one, idealization. This idealization is actually fitting to the social role. Let's say the girl, okay, it comes from 50s, so please be tolerant. Let's say the girl used to be perceived as a kind of silly, so some girls used to play more silly in front of their boyfriends than they really were, okay? Just to kind of fit into this impression. Another example, junk collector, right? We have some image about the junk collector, the clothes and the manner, appearance and manner, right? Because of the situation, must all fit. So it cannot be a guy in the suit, right? Because you would feel, So this is idealization. Expressive control, Okay, I'm gonna skip it because probably I'm short of it's kind of repetition of the. Okay, one small example. Expressive control is kind of difficult to do sometimes. Like, okay, you control your behavior simply. Let's say you are a teenager, and there's your mom, and there are your friends. Two different realities, right? You behave differently in front of your mom and in front of your friends, and they are co-present. And what do? You kind of need to be like, careless and playful in front of friends, but then mom might do something that will break a frame, right? So it's kind of, okay, just throwing an example. Misrepresentation. This is again highlighting certain properties of yourself. But dramatic realization is kind of short term, that you over-dramatize or downplay some aspects of you. Misrepresentation takes longer time. For example, this is Goffman examples. Family goes on the vacation, and for 2 weeks plays higher social status, like we are an upper middle class family, because they can, right? For 2 weeks. But they cannot hold this forever, right? So this is something like that. Performance teams. These are a group of people who perform together to create common emotions. I was working in the United States in hotel and in the restaurant convention center. These are the great examples of teamwork in terms of managing emotions. I remember how we were changing, coming from like a employee-only room on the ground floor, right? How we are changing and how we are cooperating to kind of diminish any disruption that might occur in our performance. If somebody makes a mistake, you kind of cover it. This is teamwork. Another example, teamwork, just only two people, let's say husband and wife, right? They go to the party and the husband is telling a joke, right? The wife heard this joke 200 times, right? Because, she is on the backstage, so she knows it. But the man is saying the joke, and what wife is doing? She's going along, right? She's laughing. She's laughing. She will, she might throw some comment. Yeah, exactly. This is teamwork, management of emotion. Or teachers, right? Some people teach English here, right? And this is kind of that you won't criticize another teacher in front of students or let's say a principal of the school, right? It's kind of between you. This is teamwork. Doctors do the same. They will not question another doctor's abilities, right, or expertise in front of the patient. They will do it on the backstage. Okay, and let me just give a practical implication. This is the last point. Because it sounds kind of dry. Right? Well, what can we do with this lexicon and concepts? Probably some of you know the book called The Game, right? Written by Neil Strauss. The book is on simply picking up girls. Okay, picking up girls. And the story, I will squeeze it, I promise. Neil Strauss is a guy, he was a journalist. He discovered on the internet that there is a huge community of guys who try to pick up the girls, right? They go to pubs and bars. This is called night game. Or they go to parks, stores, and streets, day game. And they try to pick up the chicks. Mostly they are not successful. So they exchange knowledge and hints about how to do it. And this is kind of semi-scientific research, because there are a lot of guys that were going on the, let's say, daily basis to the same places using, as they call it, routine. Routine is kind of, they use very similar language to Goffman. And why I'm talking about this? Because I'm very curious how much of Goffman is there. How much of Goffman is there? Do they use this kind of similar things consciously, or they just create it? For example, they use the term opening, right? When you approach the girl, you open up, right? So, and there's a huge section on how to open up, what to say. It's very important, what to say. Conclusion is interesting. No matter what you say, it's how you say it. This is more important. So actually the manner is more important than the thing you say. Well, they use terms like a field, right? Go to the field, which means you go to the club, right? And yeah. Or they use the term indicator of interest. Indicator of interest is that there are some things, in the Goffman's language we would call them, I assume, keys, that makes you thinking that this girl likes you, okay? So you can change a frame from like just having conversation to more intense one. Okay, this is a big thing. And okay, another thing, Facebook, because in the interaction you were talking about Facebook, that actually internet and computers kind of separate us from face-to-face interaction. I found a PhD written on Facebook using the Goffman's framework, the analysis of pictures and presenting yourself on your profile. And actually the overall conclusion was that Facebook gives us a chance, which is very crucial. It gives us a chance to rehearse our performance before we really go into the fields, right? And we interact with other people. Checking somebody's profile or the profile of the group, you might kind of build up the definition of the situation, maybe even frame that you can already tune up to, and then when you meet those people, you are closer to pick up the proper behavior for this particular performance. Okay, sorry for this time extension. I think I will end up here. And last sentence would be that why I find it so fascinating, because it's fun. I mean, it happens around us all the time, and we can use those things. This is actually the top of the iceberg. His vocabulary is huge. And we can use those things to observe not only other people and how they interact. This is really, really interesting. But also observe ourselves, how we interact with others.
And the last sentence.
And the last sentence. Goffman himself, as I found some accounts on himself as a person, we could define him as an asshole, because he constantly was breaking those things and challenging them. And only those people who could discover that he's doing this and attune to him, for example, he says something to embarrass you. You need to play it back. You need to embarrass him right away. If you do, you are his friend. You pass the initiation, and you can be his friend. So that's what I've read about himself. Thank you.